Greetings, Clausewitz here. So I want to talk today about bows in the age of firearms. I actually thought about this topic years ago and actually just forget it. I never came to my mind again, and I tend to forget things. But on one of my longbow videos, actually my viewer and subscriber Wartstein, or Wartstein 1, I'm not sure if this one is a port, I will just say Wartstein, had this thought of wouldn't be the bow a good weapon in additionally to the firearms, or even as a special group in specific circumstance and everything. He listed some advantages, disadvantages and everything and compared it. And this reminded me then, oh yeah, there was the subject and I thought about it. And he actually concluded many things like I did. So go to the video and read his comment, and this is like a reply to him and also like my desire to share my thoughts on this. So, first of all, the time frame we're actually talking about is really like the 18th century and 19th century, so basically Napoleonic warfare. And maybe not all of the 19th century, but this Napoleonic warfare basically. So line infantry, uniforms, muskets, bayonet, Napoleon, and basically this stuff. Of course, firearms already were widespread before that, and would actually taking over the place for the main ranged weapon, and bows and crossbows disappearing more and more in Europe. England actually used fairly long longbows. It discussed about that it should be more, that it should use them even further and not replace them with firearms and everything. But this is not the topic here so much. And the thing is, that in this time frame, like the 16th century or the 17th century, so like also 30 Years War, this isn't a good time for bows and crossbows anymore. And the reason why the firearm was so widespread was really, of course, it is easier to handle. When I really want to put up a mercenary army quickly, I can give 100 guys an arquebus and they can perform with it very well. And now we have this whole concept of strength for your muscles and for your bones to use a heavy war bow in a war, really for a long term of time, not just for one battle or one skirmish or so, really for war. But of course also the armor was pretty good actually, and an arquebus could really just penetrate it. So this is also the reason why armor declined even further. But the thing is, melee was still the main fighting style, the main tactic in battles and everything. Of course, there are some circumstances where the artillery and the ranged weapons basically played a more important role, but this was the prime directive to go in melee with pole arms, short weapons also, in this Gewalthaufen, how it's called. I don't know if there's a proper English word for this. So basically this whole formations of mercenaries with pikes, with halberds, with partisans, with great swords, with swords and shields, with shorter swords, with daggers and stuff like that. They all would wear armor because they're still using melee weapons. This was a primary weapon. And the arquebus wasn't of course it wasn't a well-developed firearm in comparison to modern firearms. And basically they hadn't this type of organization yet. They could have, but you know what I mean. But the circumstances weren't right for this. So later on, like in the 18th century, when states had their standing armies now and everything with uniforms, and the state would provide them with everything and train them and so on, they were well organized. We see like the integration of melee into the firearm, like the bayonet and everything, and we also see like different approaches on just shooting at things. And now here I want to talk about bows. The thing is, I say absolutely to replace firearms with bows, it's just crap. Because if I would do that and I would start shooting at an enemy, and would just get the armor back. They would just then use armor again, like pellet armor and mail is enough, and the helmet, and then shoot my guys down or charge them with cavalry and everything, and then had to bring the pikes back, which was just, everything would be then not so movable anymore, and it would be shut down and everything, because also firearms and everything was unavailable on a high amount, and the economy was proper for the states to really sustain large armies with vast ammunition supply and everything. But I say, to combine your normal line infantry with bowmen is actually a pretty good or nice idea. on the first look, I will say now here, but what this means, or what this means later, now what I want to say or to explain here is, I really imagine like having a bowman in the back, and you have your regular line infantry doing the thing, and they would like support the fire. They could shoot in an angle above them, and then not even a very high angle, or could shoot kind of between them if you want to. You can actually do what you want. Or they couldn't actually be skirmishers in their own means. Of course, they had to retreat somewhere to be safe from cavalry. So I don't think this is a basic good idea, but just replace them behind the lines, and they have a high fire rate, a good precision and everything, and the enemy wouldn't wear armor now and stuff like that, and you could shoot them down very quickly, kill more guys. Now you had fewer firearms to face, would lose fewer men or lesser men, and not so much men, and then you would even kill more guys on the enemy. So you had a more killing power, a big advantage actually. The first argument which comes to mind here is the whole training thing with the muscle strength and the bone. But I would say, first of all here, therefore that the enemy won't wear armor and you can get very close. You actually don't need such high doorway bows like in medieval times. You can make it lighter so it wouldn't be so exhausting and you wouldn't need so much training to really use them prolong in a war. But the main argument here why this isn't so much of consideration is you already have a training program for soldiers. You basically give them longbow training now, whatever bow training now, and then use them in a few years when they're ready, and then get new recruits and everything, and you have a flowing system with a supply of trained archers. England did this in like the 11th century or the 12th century. So basically, and without a standing army and stuff. So it is fairly easily done. You wouldn't invest more resources. Actually, you would invest lesser resources. You wouldn't need more metal and everything for the bow and the arrows than you need for the guns and the ammunition. You wouldn't need more wood and stuff like that. They would especially be useful in like wet weather, where the gunpowder would just be too wet to really incinerate, to really explode. And I should maybe learn proper English. But the thing is, now thinking about this, and you could gain all this stuff, and we never see this happening. But I want to say now, what could happen, what would the enemy do actually when you apply bow now? So, first what came in mind were shields basically. It's a pretty obvious solution. So you say, okay, I put up shields now. But how you will do that effectively? Actually, I would say shields are crap here, because you have to put some in the front, and you have to put some on the top, in the angle. And this is enough, but you will use your firearms and they produce a heavy amount of smoke. So basically, this can get out properly, and smoke were already a problem back in time in this type of warfare. And so here, you would even have worse. And now with the shield top and everything, the guys couldn't move so quickly and reformate and everything, and just make a move basically on the field, and I couldn't see as good and hear as good, even worse through the smoke, denser smoke. So this is really, this is not good. So let us bring back armor, right? But here's the problem. You would, okay, counter longbowmen now, but I can actually just switch them back to firearms. I just wouldn't care. You would like invested resources for this armor. I still had firearms that shooting at you, and you would be more cumbersome and everything and movement. Now you could say you had an important advantage in melee, just pushing melee, charging in. But then actually I would just put back pikes and shoot you behind these pikes. And this is not a good approach on this on everything. And especially this high resource drain, that you really need to equip thousands of men with armor, to make armor to maintain them in this high amounts, and to produce the firearms and train the soldiers. And this could win wars, really, to bring your opponent on this brink of resource drain. Is brink a good word here? I don't know. But this is not what I mentioned before. This could happen to me as well. I could be in the situation that my enemy would just adapt no bowman. Not in this case like before me, but he sees, oh, and he uses bows and is effective. I do the same to just try to kill more than he could. Fairly good tactic. And now I'm in the situation that I have to counter his bowman. I can't even have enough bowmen or soldiers to really just put up more guys and everything. So what do I do against this bowman? I could yeah, bring back armor. No, yeah, now I am on this end with the resources, and maybe this would break my neck at this point, and it can be sure if it would. So basically I see a good argument that people actually came up with the idea, and some guys are telling like, oh, this could lead into a vast disaster, and we have to retrain some true guys here to reintroduce it and resources, and we don't risk it to get stuck into a bad situation. But I think the main point why people didn't try this out or didn't do it and stuff like that was basically they had the running system. It worked fairly well. We have to say that it worked fairly well. Even it's kind of gruesome that you have to stand there and wait to get shot and everything. Even if the firearms weren't precise, the huge amount of firearms made it deadly enough. So the point is, with this whole bows and with the guys behind it, you also have to consider that the military, so basically guys who make these decisions in the most places or would actually see the guys in combat and so, they wouldn't learn military or tactic strategy in the sense of everything which was done in history and what we could do, and would learn physics and stuff. They would learn what they would need to lead an army and to organize an army, basically to really administrate the army in a whole, to really support them economically and everything, and to make weapons, design weapons. This is not an task, responsibility for officers or high-ranking militaries and everything. So you now have a small amount of people which came up with this idea and could change something, and now you had an even smaller part which really come to this idea, and now we have to consider if it would be like we also have to consider fashion. This is the point here. This was the state of warfare now, and they saw many things as more primitive back then. They wrote later on like books which are very popular about how the knights would just use blunt swords with brute strength, big blunt swords. These are these romantic ideas on which we based this history legends we kind of have still today about blunt, big, heavy medieval swords, for example. And so if I am now a high-ranking officer, and I'm probably a nobleman too, and I want to introduce like a medieval tool, medieval weapon here, tactics, I would fear reputation loss, and I actually would say I'm not even sure if I consider it worth trying. Really, like I have to convince the people going to this convince phase. I could get really can be blamed for this, can lose reputation, I can lose my position maybe in this high rank, and I want to keep it and improve it. This is nothing sounds this sounds desirable actually. And if you would like propose it as a low ranking officer, then actually why should high ranking officers hear you out? And no, it shouldn't be this way. We should listen to good arguments and stuff, and just don't consider things as, oh, it's old school, therefore it's bad and everything. We have to consider facts and evidence and arguments for the argument. But we know people aren't so. We know people don't act like this. We all experienced it at some points, and in at least on the internet. But the thing is, yeah, we know people aren't that way. So I would say this is the main explanation, that when somebody came to this, they didn't have the chance to introduce it. Then we have to consider they don't want to touch a running system, and then we have to consider that even if some people thought it is a good idea, but they had maybe not this bad feeling, but saw this point like, yeah, maybe we are on a disadvantage at the end, and I really want to concentrate my troops on this state of arms race now, on the state of warfare, of tactics, and improve on a way where I can really surprise my enemy and stuff like that. I am not 100% sure, of course. This is my thoughts on this. You can tell me what you think about this. And I actually think this is basically a very interesting and fun topic. And to really thought of this combination, I actually did it in a video game, Shogun 2 Total War, the add-on Fall of the Samurai. It is in Japan in the 19th century with modern firearms and stuff, but also traditional samurais. And I actually had like a modern firearm battle line, and behind that I had samurai with bows. Well, a good combination, basically. But actually, firearms at this point were very effective, especially the firearms they could have like really rifled firearms or with a load, you can load it on the back and everything. So at this point, really, the firearms get too good. You don't have to consider both anymore. You could even use the fire in different situations. It could be also a good point. You could actually use rifles or muskets in situations like out of very small cover. Very low cover stuff. It sounds nice overall. That you really want to improve the advantages of the rifle and the musket already there, and you already understand it fairly enough, and don't bring something new to make it maybe more chaotic or so, or something more your officers have to handle. So I hope you found this informative, and I hope you make some own thoughts on it and let me know what you think. I hope this was a good insight or an answer to you, Wartstein, and I'm basically very happy now with the state of my channel, how it's all done, that you guys watch this stuff, you commented on it, that we have some discussions and people have discussions with each other on there, and it's really nice. It's really glad to see it. So basically, thank you to Wartstein that reminding me for the subject, and thank you for basically everybody watching this and subscriber and who subscribe to me. And if you're not a subscriber now, you can be when you want to, but I think you already know it. So yeah, if you enjoyed it, like and subscribe, you know this stuff. And please let me know what you think on this topic. Hopefully see you soon.